Welcome you all to this very exciting panel discussion on talent development in financial services. And I'm joined by a very illustrious panel, Krystal Irving from ANZ Bank. She's based out of Melbourne. It's the middle of the night there. So she couldn't join in person, but was gracious enough to share a video with us. Amelie joins us from Kent, who represents Standard Chartered Bank. She's the Global Head of Learning and Development. Yolanda Jordan from Nedbank. She joins us from Cape Town and represents Nedbank. Jyoti Rai, who's Managing Director of Global Human Resources based out of New York and represents Moody's. So let's kickstart today's discussion with Krystal sharing her insights on the three big shifts in talent development that the pandemic has brought about, and specifically in ANZ Bank and the financial services sector. Can we have the video, please?
Hi, my name's Krystal Irving and I'm responsible for learning strategy, culture and capability at ANZ Bank. And I'm here today to talk about three key considerations when thinking about talent development. So a little bit about ANZ quickly. We've been around for 180 years and have over 45,000 employees. We operate in 33 markets around the world, obviously with a large presence in Australia and New Zealand, but also Asia Pac, Europe, America and the Middle East. So our topic today is talent development in the financial services industry, and I want to take a moment to provide a little bit of context that's relevant for ANZ, but also relevant for many financial services organisations globally. The first one is we are in a war for talent, and I'm sure this is not a new topic and that many of you are very much aware that it's becoming increasingly challenging to fill critical roles for particular capability types. So with that in mind, we've been focusing on having a really compelling employee value proposition that sells the organisation as an amazing place to learn and grow, bringing in the right type of people, and then a really clear agenda focused on the reskill and upskill of our existing workforce. The second piece of context is an increasing external pressure from governments on the financial services industry to invest in the development of our people. So governments are now so concerned about the upcoming skill shortage and the impact on workers in the financial services sector that they're actually starting to request reporting and evidence in the investment that organisations are making in the development of their workforce and the impact that that is having. So with that context in mind, there are three key areas of consideration for ANZ as we think about talent development. One is a focused capability strategy. Two is talent mobility, and three is learning culture. So starting out with focused capability strategy. ANZ's taken the time over the last year to become extremely clear on what capabilities we feel we need to disproportionately invest in order to succeed. We have 14 of those capabilities at present, and as we consider those capabilities and the critical skills that sit within them, we're looking through the lens of whether those capabilities are durable or perishable. So the skills required for engineering and data roles in particular are two examples of what we're calling perishable. These are skills that require ongoing investment and a learning ecosystem that enables people to continuously develop and evolve their skills in alignment with how the external market is also evolving. With that in mind, we're considering how we use external credentials and certifications to not only help motivate people to continuously develop their skills, but to do so in a way that provides external recognition, relevancy, and credibility beyond ANZ. What we're also looking to better develop is the concept of the T-shaped practitioner. So someone who has deep specialisation in a particular domain, but breadth across some of the more durable and often more humanistic skills, such as collaboration, critical thinking, communication, as well as knowledge areas built out through a variety of experience and exposure across one's career. So when you think about that knowledge built across one's career, this leads to the second key area of consideration, which is talent mobility. So a lot of organisations, especially 180-year-old organisations, are built in a way that doesn't traditionally enable easy movement of people across teams, business units or divisions. But if you consider the most impactful way to develop talent, it's actually through experience and exposure to new environments, new contexts and new challenges. So you need to develop an ecosystem in your organisation that enables better fungibility of your workforce to move to where the work is needed, more fluid mobility of your workforce to allow them to move beyond the barriers of their existing team, business unit or division, and he's done so with the intention to help people build the breadth and depth they need to develop that T-shaped expertise. So to tackle this challenge, we're doing a few things. One is to evolve our people platforms to enable easier mobility of our people so they can first be aware of the opportunities available and opt into them. And then secondly, there is system mindset and cultural change required to create an environment where this mobility is able to happen with ease. And to date, this is generally something that's been done well in really targeted patches around the organisation, but not something we're yet to do consistently at genuine scale. So I've mentioned being clear about the capabilities you need to develop and having a clear technology-enabled approach to talent mobility. But finally, I want to emphasise the importance of learning culture and talent development. Where an immature learning culture exists, it can absolutely act as a barrier to talent development. A healthy learning culture has leaders who role model a commitment to learning, who encourage it in their people, and ensure learning and growth is embedded as a focus in business strategy. ANZ's been investing significant effort in building a learning culture and has recognised that leader-led initiatives, coupled with targeted marketing and awareness campaigns and access to targeted learning in the moments that matter, are key to ensuring ongoing talent development over time. So in summary, the three key focus areas as we consider talent development are being clear about capabilities with a focus on developing T-shaped practitioners, a focus on mobility, providing opportunities for experience and exposure beyond the current role, and learning culture as a critical enabler to the above. Thank you.
Thank you, Krystal, for putting the spotlight on three very important components: capability strategy, talent mobility, and learning culture, while considering talent development in the new world of work. In fact, the World Economic Forum declared a reskilling emergency in 2020, stating that as jobs are transformed by the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, we would need to reskill more than 1 billion people by 2030. And by 2022, 42% of the core skills that are required to perform jobs, existing jobs, would in fact change. The short shelf life of skills and the already strained labor market are giving rise to a multitude of skilling gaps. With a shortage of labor and an aging workforce, the OECD puts an economic loss of the global skills crisis at a staggering $5 trillion. And according to Gartner, HR leaders are putting their needs for critical skills and competencies at the top of their priorities in 2021, with 31% saying that they cannot create skill development solutions fast enough to meet evolving skilling needs. Furthermore, COVID-19 has changed customer behavior and accelerated the move to digital. The shift to a more platform-based industry has created a new set of challenges and opportunities for the financial services industry. With that context today, we have divided our panel discussion into three acts. Learning is the new currency for success. A new world of work demands new skills, and the need of the hour, a new model for careers. Let's start with Act 1, learning is the new currency for success. Amelie, just a few weeks ago, Standard Chartered Bank had organized this Global Learning Week, a massive platform for employees to learn and celebrate their development. This year's theme was Sustainable Us, invest in yourself, invest in the world. It aimed to accelerate development, connect people with the need to upskill and reskill for the future and build engagement. Question for you. What are your top three priorities in learning and development? And what initiatives other than the GLW have you been taking?
Cool. So thank you for the great question and the great introduction. Let me know if you can't hear me. I am in rural Kent, as mentioned before. Thank you also for inviting me. What an interesting session that we walked into as well. I'm really looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say. So what are the top 3 priorities? Look, I mean, I think I've been at Standard Chartered for just over a year now. And it is true that learning drives, in my words, performance and growth, in your words, success. I'm going to take those as synonymous. I think the first job that I had was to really reconsider how learning can actually match more closely to our growth agenda. Coming from other organizations as a consultant and then also at Google, you can imagine that growth agenda is very strongly in my mind, right? How do we create shared economic value as a large organization is a priority. And so when we were looking at our learning portfolio, we really decided to divide it into 3 things that unless we do all 3, we're not going to advance our growth. The first thing I think is very similar to what ANZ was describing as a focus capability uplift, which is really just tidying up what we do every day and making sure that everybody has a democratized access to the learning that they need to do their jobs really, really well, right? So that's like table stakes now. The second part was we have now a much bigger focus on reskilling for tomorrow. Like you, we've realized that there is a global shortage of certain critical roles. Also, like you, we've realized that there is a D&I challenge and a capability challenge that need to be considered, which I can go into in our next act. But also we realize that if we only do those 2 things, we're just going to roll ourselves off a cliff. Right? Any company that makes itself efficient and just teaches itself how to do what they need to do today is basically going to run off a cliff unless they're careful. So the third pillar of our strategy is really around building global citizens in order to drive our stands, which are around achieving our net zero carbon emissions ambitions, which is around supporting women-owned businesses around the world, which is around resetting globalization by creating shared economic value in the ecosystems in which we play. So we just very closely reoriented our entire learning architecture to fit those 3 kind of speeds that every leader needs to operate at. Global Learning Week is a wonderful opportunity for us to highlight activities, platforms, brain training games, simulations, and anything basically other than a program that we've built that fulfills those 3 needs, which is really around building for today, tomorrow, and beyond. I'll pause there. Happy to give any more detail if you'd like.
So what prompted you to share your badges on LinkedIn? I was curious looking at your badge sharing. Is that something that you drive?
I mean, it's so, look, I mean, first of all, it's a great way to get engagement. We had 59,000 clicks and participants across the different sessions that we did, which is huge for us, and a significant increase on last year. But I think more importantly, twofold. First of all, we believe that we have a unique set of insights in a couple of areas around sustainable finance, for example, and we wanted to give people a chance to go through the sessions and not just pursue an interest, but actually get certified. We have a real core skill in mandatory learning and certification anyway, so we decided to turn that to things where we actually have a right to certify people, like sustainability and sustainable finance. That was the first thing. The second thing is, it's really important that we get everybody focused on how they can bring our strategy and our growth agenda to life, which is why we wanted to give everybody an option to see how they play. This isn't, learning is a search button. We've given you the biggest bookstore in the world. Now enjoy yourself. That was kind of phase 1 of how we democratize learning, building the learning habit effectively. Phase 2 is really around, right, what does it really take to be a global leader at SCB? What's distinctive? One of the things we believe is distinctive is clearly an opportunity to act around sustainability. So it was really important to us that we gave people a chance to certify in that. But yeah, I hope they were fun. They were very cool and well liked. We actually had 2,000 people playing one of our new simulations, which is around balancing people, planet, and profit, for example, at one point. And we had over 2,000 people dialing in for various panels and sessions. So it was pretty fun.
Well, heartiest congratulations, Amelie. In fact, Gartner's top priorities for HR leaders in 2021, the top key initiatives selected by the HR leaders was to actually support organizational priorities in the form of building critical skills and competencies. Moving on to my next question, which is really about, learning is the only competitive, sustainable advantage for organizations. And yet learning is still seen as an important cost center, but not as a strategic capability worth reallocating millions of dollars to. Question for you, Yolanda. A, do you agree? B, if yes, what is your advice to make a compelling business case to increase investment significantly in learning and development? And what prompted you to launch the Grow Me mission at Nedbank?
For sure. Thank you for that. And it's great listening to the panel thus far. So to answer your first question, yes, I agree that learning is really the only sustainable competitive advantage going forward. However, with that being said, there are certain criteria that I believe learning must meet before making such a claim. And if I start off, but let me just start off by giving a practical insight into the journey that we've undertaken in Nedbank over the past 18 months, the Grow Me mission, the Grow Me journey, that serves towards us building that business case and the move to that space where learning is seen as a strategic capability. And I think there were a number of things that we did. And the first thereof was really to understand our context and the Nedbank learning platform. And we know that based on changes within the financial services sector, the majority of our Nedbank workforce will need to be either re-up or outskilled in the next 1 to 5 years to keep their skill sets relevant and for them to remain economically active. So this was really a priority that we wanted to address because this talks directly to the achievement of our business strategy and priorities. I think the second action that we took once we understood the learning platform and what we were solving for was to map the implications for talent development. So what is it that we needed to rethink, to change? And really, we thought about what is the learning culture we want to drive going forward? And also, how do we look at increasing investments in technologies that enable scaled and proactive skilling? The third thing, and I think one of the most important actions that we took, was to mobilize and allocate resources, whether it be people, investment, and time, to lead and drive this change. And this is what you refer to as the Grow Me mission that drove that and is still driving that within our organization because it is an ongoing journey. The one thing that we also did was we really spent a significant amount of time understanding our internal environment. And this included conducting things like health assessments of our existing learning ecosystem. And really, we concluded that there were a number of key problem areas that we needed to address if we wanted to attend to that Nedbank learning platform. Important is that we tested our problem statement with our internal stakeholders, and we also gained valuable insights in terms of additional frustrations, obstacles, and learner behavior that we needed to solve. I think equally as important was gaining insight into global as well as local trends and best practices that suited our context and where we wanted to go to. And also, if I think back about what really served us well and what continues to serve us well, is that we have created a utopian vision of our future employee learning experience in context of our learning strategy and learning platform. And that remains to date and will in future be our North Star that guides us in our journey. If I look at the last is sometimes something that we miss from an L&D perspective, and it was crucial for us in this instance, is once we had a recommended way forward and we knew what we wanted to implement, we mapped the cost of implementing the solutions, but we also engaged in the financial business case, which included components that spoke to what was our benefit in terms of process automation, resource optimization, cost avoidance, and things and aspects as such. We also improved employer brand attractiveness, the expedited ability and expedited and increased innovation capability, and the realization of our Nedbank purpose and our people promise, our EVP in other words. And lastly, I think, yes.
So there's a lot going on there, right? So you
yeah, sure.
With, and it obviously does highlight the magnitude of effort, the
For
reorientation of our mindsets required to build this compelling business case and get in millions of dollars. Otherwise, there's incrementalism. I mean, you're happy if your budget increases in learning and development by 10%, but clearly it isn't where it ought to be given the magnitude of the ask that we have in front of us from a business standpoint. With that, I'm going to quickly transition to Act 2. And, a new world of work demands new skills. And we heard from Amelie, we've heard from yourself that clearly it is about understanding your business needs and priorities, and then understanding the skills and capabilities that are needed there. Now, according to PwC CEO survey, 76% of CEOs in financial services companies see skills shortages as a threat to their growth prospects. And this is compared to 50% a decade ago. An interesting point to note is that financial services CEOs are less likely than their peers in other industries to say that they have made significant progress across a range of upskilling efforts. Jyoti, what impact has the availability of skills had on your organization, and what talent development approaches and practices have you taken to bridge the skill gap?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you, Nishay, and pleasure to be here with my fellow colleagues here. Let me just build on one of the threads that I was hearing from some of the panel members. And where are we? We are right now, when you look at some of the statistics from the U.S. labor organization, there are almost 9.4 million jobs open just in U.S. itself. And that is where companies are struggling to fill their roles. So when you think about learning and development, it's no longer about just teaching people new skills, but it is truly about talent pipelining, sustaining your talent pipelines at itself. And if we think about where we are right now in the phase of double disruption for every company. Every company is talking about how they can accelerate their digital journey, how they can move to cloud. That's the conversation that every company is having. The second is for employees, the workforce preferences are also evolving. How they want to work, what they want to work, how they want to engage, and what they are demanding from their own companies itself is shifting. So if that's the broader context from an industry standpoint. Now, where are we? We are absolutely facing that crunch from a talent standpoint, because, when we think about our pipelines, we are not, it's really always a question around buy versus build. And when we look at you cannot continue to sustain just a buy. You have to constantly build your pipelines, because your roles, your expectations of delivery is shifting. Where are we as a company? Just as a company, we are 100-plus-year-old company, which is built a business around insights, and that's been our business model for us. We are an integrated risk assessment, which is helping companies think about risk. And for every CEO, the risk that they think about is, what is my financial risk to my business? What is my reputational risk to my business? And what is my, cyber risk to my business? So we are in that, process as a company. We are an integrated risk assessment company, which is helping organizations be better informed about those risks. And that is rooted in being a data and analytics company.
It's interesting that you cited all those risks, because at the heart of, or the genesis of those risks, is capability and capacity risk.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where I was going, Nishay, in terms of, so what does this mean for people capability? What does this mean in terms of the skills that they need to learn from a data and analytics? The shift that we are seeing, the technology skills, and at the same time, the leadership skills. So, because the leadership shift itself is changing around how and where the work needs to be done. And
that's a good cue for me, because, I just wanted to call out there's this very interesting research done by the Financial Services Skills Commission in the UK. And the top technical skills for the financial services sector: user experience, agile, cybersecurity, machine learning, AI. And the top behavioral skills for the FS sector: adaptability, empathy, relationship management, teamwork. I'm going to use that data to actually make this transition into our third act, which is the need of the hour, a new model for careers. Now, it's interesting because we've always had this discussion about build and buy, and at the two ends of the spectrum. Even Josh kind of spoke about HR being looked at the two very ends is recruitment and learning and development. How has that changed? Because clearly traditional job models, which were viewed as career progression being more vertical rather than lateral, and therefore the career ladder versus the career lattice, has that thinking changed in your organizations? And what are you doing to kind of support this evolving career model that is now probably more prevalent and in demand even by your employees? So this question is to all of you, and you can go. Let's start with you, Amelie, then with Yolanda, and then with Jyoti. And we have 5 minutes to wrap up. So let's keep this sharp.
Talk quickly. Okay, you interrupt me if I'm going too long. Thank you again to the other panelists. It was super cool to learn from you. So what are we doing with reskilling? I think like many others, we realize that there's a global shortage of people who are able to fulfill some of the roles where we're going to have an even bigger need in the future. We also realize the opportunity where we've got a lot of people who, whose roles are shifting, and we'd actually like to redeploy them into these new roles rather than lose them and try to bring only new people in. Couple of constraints. Number one, diversity and inclusion, right? So it is really difficult to get hiring managers to find people and accept them if they don't have exactly the same title and the relevant experience from before, right? So that makes it harder to reskill. Another constraint, diversity and inclusion related as well. It turns out that diverse candidates are less likely to be confident in applying for roles where they don't fulfill all of the criteria. So we put together I think, a very comprehensive reskilling approach, which includes a number of things targeted towards addressing that. Number one, we start with career coaching, right? Because when you start by asking people about their values and what they really want to get out of work, they tend to be more open to lateral moves. They tend to be more open to moves that they haven't considered before. Number two, we have brain training. So we built a series of proprietary brain training games that prepare you for core roles that are new to market. If you're a data analyst, you need to accelerate your maturity at spotting and cleaning dirty data sheets. So we've developed a series of brain training games that literally accelerate your ability to spot dirty data and to clean data sets very quickly by playing it 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Number three, performance simulations. This is a big thing for D&I, like less confident candidates. Come in, experience in a safe and coaching environment what it is to actually live this role and to take decisions in this context. Number four, we have a curriculum like everyone else does with certification. Number five, perhaps the most important, we've invested in what's called Talent Marketplace, which is a mentoring, job shadowing, and kind of jobs posting marketplace where you can actually connect with people who are currently in role and the hiring manager, all of which we think address some of the constraints that I mentioned before. I don't know if that was...
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful nuggets, rapid fire. Okay. Gaming, it's a big thing. You're bringing gaming and learning together closely. So psychological, safe environment, career coaching, technology. Jyoti, please, let's go with Yolanda first. Your quick nuggets on the new career model and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm just going to build on what Amelia said because I think we're in the same position. But really what we have done is we've looked at our entire talent development ecosystem. And we have ensured that from a strategy perspective, we are in line, we are enabling mobility. We've looked at our culture and we've built it into our learning culture and our people promise in terms of where we are driving towards. We've built it into our deliberate skilling or capability academy approach that we want to implement going forward. it also becomes a key feature as to when we make technology considerations or purchasing decisions. And really, we've focused heavily on it in our change and communication strategies, embedding it in everything what we do. And then really, we've also looked at how do we, there's a huge focus in our organization around integrating our data landscape across systems and people practices that will allow us to employ talent where it's needed most. However, this is a journey, and not only do we have to change mindsets, but also practices and policies and ways of working that are deeply rooted in how we used to do things.
Super. I mean, the big takeaway for me there is be the change you want to see, as Mahatma Gandhi said. So, and clearly change in communication, critical aspect of supporting these new career models. Jyoti, you have the final say, and then we wrap.
Great, thank you. So the only thing I will add to everything that has been said is that when we think about career, it is not just about vertical or horizontal, because the whole notion is that you're moving out of one role and then moving to another role. There is a continuum is what we need. When we think about the career itself, it's a continuum. How are we thinking about projects, opportunities, where people, while doing their current role, what are the additional project opportunities that we are creating for them to learn and be ready to move on and take on and navigate through across. So that's, and that is what we have been working on, whether it is through design centers, product design centers, and all, really bringing people along, do what the jobs that they are doing, to additionally being seconded to another team. And that creates, it's less nervous for anybody, because you're not taking major risks for a candidate as well as for the manager, and you're able to continuously add on to your skills and capabilities.
Great insight, and no better way to end this panel discussion. Careers about experiences. Josh said it yesterday as well. With that, I would like to thank my panelists for a great conversation today. Thank you very much. It couldn't get more diverse in terms of at least geographical dispersion from where you've joined in. With that, thank you everyone for your listening in to this panel.